Oops, I thought it was muted, but the mic wasn't muted. Let me do that regular mic test. And once I'm sure that my mic is on, I'll get going. Oops, I thought it was muted, but the mic wasn't muted. Let me do that regular mic test. And all right, everybody, welcome back to another live session with me, Jared Dechival. Those of you who catch me live, you catch the best part because we're able to interact. And after that, this video will be edited and made beautiful. It's not going to be as raw as it is right now. So you're catching the best part of this. So naturally, there'll be a little bit of noise and this and that, things that are not as perfect as it will be when it's fully perfected, right? We're working on a bunch of other stuff. This room has been built specifically for that. It's a studio, but studios take a long time for amateurs to build them and make them perfect. And I'm an amateur. I'm not a streamer or anything like that. But we're making progress. Better sound now, better acoustics, and there's going to be a system that's going to come this week that's going to kill the room noise, the little shh type of noise that you hear. It's going to be eliminated as well. But I'm feeling hot. Hey, Google, lower the thermostat to 69 degrees. I think, yeah. See, once the AC kicks off, you can kind of start to hear this little bit of noise, but we're going to improve that. All right, I am so happy, right? And I really mean it. I'm not like the people who are going to say, oh, what's up, people? I don't do this type of cheesy stuff, but I'm super excited when I see that people have connected with me, and I'm going to get right into the topic of the day, which is how do you respond to a ransomware attack? The Saturday editions are specifically made for IT and cybersecurity executives, those folks who are super busy during the week. We connect on Saturday, and they can ask me questions, etc., etc. I think I'm ready to go. The whole thing has been set up, and I'm doing this now more regularly. I want to apologize that I start this one late, but we'll be on time. Let me get started with the content of the day. I know that there's a macro that I have to run here so it can switch the camera for me automatically. I'm going to run that macro right now. Okay. Well, from this point, the camera should be switching itself, and once you start chatting, I'll be able to see that you're chatting with me. I need to bring the chat up. This is going to be a comfortable live session. I'm not going to rush. We're going to be able to chat, communicate, and answer questions. It's a very important and serious topic, so I've got to start being serious. A cup of coffee always helps. Want to come full of energy. Okay. How do you respond to a ransomware attack? Robert Mueller, who was the director of the FBI, said in 2012 that there are two types of organizations, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. As soon as he made this statement, someone else said, well, this is not super correct. There are rather two types of institutions, those that have been hacked and those that don't know that they have been hacked. Well, regardless of which one is absolutely true, I know that the truth falls somewhere in between. There are really two types of institutions, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked or don't know whether they have been hacked. Well, I've been part of a hack before. I was leading an institution that was hacked at one point. And I'm going to tell you about my experience, how I responded, and what the result was. And from that point on, I have been part of a bunch of other breaches. People have called me. Last year, I believe that at least 9 institutions called me, Jared, I've been hacked. There has been a breach. We need help right away. I'm going to help you understand how to defend yourself and to prevent the penetration. Number one, that's supposed to be the priority. And number two, if you are penetrated or if you're hacked, how do you respond to that? Now understand that the statement that there are two types of institutions, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked, was made by a very important person. I always forget to record. That's a problem. Let me start that again. The statement that says there are two types of institutions, those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked, was made by a very important person, the head of the FBI, and one of the most respected lawyers in the United States, Robert Mueller. Now, he has information that the rest of us don't know. The FBI is the boss of everyone in cybersecurity. They are the ones that lead the cyber war against the enemies of the United States. The FBI wants you to report every time that there's a cyber crime. It may have become normal that people get hacked. It may have become normal in the mind of the general population that they will get hacked. Because most of the times people get hacked, no one gets prosecuted. And so plenty of people don't even bother to report that they have been hacked. But it is not a normal thing. And it is a crime for someone to decide that they're going to enter your network without your permission. So as a result of that, like all other crimes, whenever you get hacked, you should report. And you should not just report to your local police station, you should report to the FBI, as they're the ones that keep track of that. And they have the most advanced weaponry, cyber weaponry, to help Americans and American institutions defend themselves against cyber criminals. And those cyber criminals tend to be people and entities that are overseas. And that's probably one of the reasons why they do not always get prosecuted, because they're out of reach of the United States. Once in a while, some of them get zapped and extradited to the United States and prosecuted here. But it's not very often. And so the millions of hacks that happen every year go unpunished. But never forget that people illegally hacking your network is a crime, and you should report that to the FBI. And it is also the head of the FBI that said to us that all of the institutions fall within two categories: those that have been hacked and those that will be hacked. Now, he knows more than we do. All of the crimes are reported to his institution. And we should take that statement very seriously. Now, if that's the case, how should you respond? How should you, as the leader of an institution, the IT or cybersecurity leader of an institution, how should you respond after you hear such statement? Well, the number one thing that you should do is what I did. You should not panic. When the institution I was leading was hacked, I called the leadership, the people that I worked for, and I told them my job is to not panic and to answer as swiftly as possible, to unleash proportional forces against the forces that have hacked us, and to restore order and to restore business operations as quickly as possible. But how did I do it? Well, I knew that it is likely that at some point my institution would be hacked. So on day one, what I did is I built relationships with people that can help me defend against the hack. That means I put a company on retainer. At that time, I was a heavy Palo Alto client. We heavily invested in Palo Alto technologies. And Palo Alto had just purchased a company named Crypsys. The Crypsys group now was merged with the Palo Alto Unit 42 group. Unit 42, if you don't know, is one of the most advanced cyber defense group in the United States. They conduct research for Palo Alto. They're a unit of Palo Alto, and they have some of the most advanced threat intelligence capabilities that the world has ever seen. Now, Crypsys' capabilities were augmented with, or Unit 42's capabilities were augmented with Crypsys capabilities. Crypsys itself is a company like Unit 42, and Palo Alto purchased that company. Once I heard that, and I was in the process of buying a bunch of Palo Alto technologies, I put Palo Alto on a retainer. Really, I put Unit 42 / Crypsys Palo Alto on a retainer. That means if ever I get hacked, I will call these people and they will come and restore order in my institution. I did that because I knew that I didn't have the capabilities to defend my institution by myself with the team that I had at the time. I was building the team. And so every night I'm thinking, if I'm called and said we hacked, how can I defend myself? I don't have the firepower to defend against, and no pun intended, not Cisco firepower I'm talking here. I don't have the cyber firepower to defend the institution properly. So I need to augment my capabilities, and that's why I put Unit 42 on retainer on day one. This retainer was costly, but somewhere around 4 or 5 months later, we were exposed to a major breach. It was an email compromise. I won't go into the details about how this happened, but my engineers reported to me that they have seen activities that they have never seen before. We got on the call and we started understanding what we were exposed to. Quickly, we contained this threat. But the next day, the threat persisted. This time, it was stronger than the way it was before. And it is at that point that engineers and architects informed me that they don't have the capability to defend against that. I had a policy. I had multiple different policies in place that would escalate this to based on the level of severity. And it was at that point that I decided that we are exposed to the highest level of threat that we have ever seen, and this warrants that I activate the strongest contingency that I have. And I won't say the name of the contingency, but they had very descriptive names. And I informed the leadership that it is with great sadness that I am informing you that I believe it is time to activate such and such plan. And the leadership says, go right ahead. And within hours, the incident response team was investigating and they contained the threat, etc. Big show. Firepower that you have never seen before, or that I had never seen before. And threat was contained, and within 30 days I was given a report that explained to me how we were hacked and what we need to do to prevent that from happening in the future. But before I get there, I need to tell you what you should do. If you're hearing this, you're thinking about this, you're leading an institution. How do you prevent this institution from getting hacked? And when it gets hacked, as it will get hacked, what should you do? Well, here's what I would do first. I would prevent the hack from happening because it's easier, it's more affordable for you to prevent the hack than for you to respond to the hack after you have been breached. Understand that sensitive information might be exposed. Companies, more than 50% of the companies that are hacked typically go out of business because it costs them too much to recover. And so you need to make sure that you prevent that from happening. But how do you prevent that from happening? Well, folks, it's not magic. It is an art. And this art needs to take into account the architecture of your cyber defense capabilities. The detail or the strength is in the architecture. You see, the hackers are going to penetrate your institution for one of two reasons. One, because you failed to do something that you were supposed to do, and by you I mean the whole institution, the engineers, architect, administrators, etc., or because you did something that you were not supposed to do. Now, Palo Alto has reported that by 2025, 99% of the hacks will happen as a result of misconfiguration. Think about that. 99% of the hacks will happen as a result of misconfiguration. Now, this misconfiguration is something that you could respond to before the hackers discover that you have been misconfigured. How do you do that? Well, threat prevention. If there is anything that you do as the leader of an IT or cybersecurity team, it is to prevent threats. You have one job in the world, one most important job. It is to prevent threats. You prevent threats with the technologies that you have through a proper architecture that is designed to defend your most precious assets. And these assets, as John Kendervag, the inventor of the Zero Trust, would say, they are the DAS, the data, asset, access, and services. You need to know what these things are. You need to identify them. You need to be intimately familiar. As someone I met when I was a contractor for Response Force One said, you need to be intimately familiar with the DAS, the data, asset, access, and services that your institution hires you to protect. That's what you're here for. Whether you're engineer, architect, administrator, technician, director, head of cybersecurity, we are all here to defend the DAS. We are at war, folks, and we can't help to be complacent. We need to understand who our enemies are. We need to understand what they're coming for. And we need to know how we're going to build the walls around this very valuable asset that the attackers are coming to grab. It is the DAS. You can't help but to be familiar intimately with what the DAS has. If the DAS gets compromised, your institution likely will stop operating. And so now that you have identified the DAS, you need to build perimeters around it. You need to configure your environment so that it can identify who has access to the DAS. By focusing on the identity of the people that are transiting or transacting with the DAS, you will now have the capability to identify when the wrong person is coming into the DAS. The wrong person will be the hackers. And once you detect that, you need to be able to respond. You see, job number one is threat prevention. You need to prevent threats. And you do that through the architecture. We won't be able to go into the details as this is an in-depth concept. If you want me to go into the details, we can have a series on that, right? And you can ask questions, specific questions, and I'll answer them right now. So you do that through a proper architecture for you to defend the institution. And the institution that you're defending here is not the everything in the institution, right? You're defending the DAS. The DAS stands for Data, Asset, Access, and Services, the most valuable thing that the institution possesses. When this gets compromised, the business stops. And when the business stops, you don't get paid. And we are in big trouble. We want to prevent that from happening. But we won't be able to prevent it all. Even with the best architecture in the world, no one is able to fully prevent cyber attacks or cyber incidents. This is why now you should be able to detect. When you can't prevent, when the systems cannot prevent the threat from penetrating the network, they need to be able to detect when that happens. And when you detect, you need to be able to respond. So let's summarize what you need to do to prevent a ransomware attack. Prevention, detection, and response. And response here, my friend, means rapid response. Within milliseconds, you should be able to respond to the threat. And for you to be able to respond to the threat within milliseconds, you need to have systems that are automated. Let's go a little bit into the details of what goes into each one of those different segments of the ransomware prevention. Let's go with the threat prevention. We talked about the architecture. You need to have an architecture that prevents threats from coming in. In the details of that are you need to have a good identity and access management. That way you can identify who's coming. And before you have that identity and access management, you need to have a complete awareness of what you're defending against. And we're going to put this inside of this box that we call the DAS. Now, this DAS can live in any different place. We talked about that, zero trust. It can live in the cloud. It can live on premise. It can live in the United States and outside of the United States. It can live in space. It can live under the ocean. The DAS, Data Asset Access and Services, can live in a bunch of different places. It can be in one place or a bunch of different places at the same time. You need to be able to defend it. Now, by defending it properly, you prevent threats from coming in. But because no one can prevent all threats, you need to be able to detect when you can't prevent. And the purpose of this detection is to respond. How do you detect threats? Well, it's the same systems that you have already. When we talk about the prevention, I believe you should start focusing on architecting your perimeters properly. Perimeters is where people enter and exit the network. Entering the network doesn't mean that they have entered the DAS. The DAS can be inside of the network, deep inside of the network. Now, people can get through the edge and they can go through the microperimeters around the DAS. But you need to start at the edge because that's like the entry point, like the gate. That's where they start coming in. You need to start focusing on architecting this properly. And one of the ways to do that is to focus on your next generation firewalls. If you don't have next generation firewalls, I'm sorry to say, you have to have next generation firewalls because stateful firewalls, older firewalls cannot defend against modern threats. So even Cisco says to you, stop using ASAs. Start using firepower. Stop using older technologies. Stop using technologies that are not intelligent, that are not able to get updates frequently, right? And so you need next generation firewalls to protect against penetration at the perimeters. Architect these things to be user aware, content aware, application aware, and to be able to decrypt encrypted traffic. Oh la la. I start to go into the details. That wasn't my intention here. But let me give you the high level. Focus on prevention. Once you're able to prevent, you are 50% there. The second 50% will be detection and response. The detection will happen with those same next generation firewalls and other technologies, such as network access controls, SIM solution, etc. They need to be configured and architected in such a way that they can alert quickly to the right people. That means you have to have the people in place. What if you don't have a team that's big enough to listen to these alerts and respond to them? That's why you need to have relationships. You need to start thinking about outsourcing this to an outside team that can respond on your behalf. There are plenty of companies that offer that. Nova Coast is one of these companies that I have used in the past. Very reputable company. They will monitor your environment 24/7, and when threats come in, they'll respond to those threats on your behalf. Now, response is the final piece. That means you need to be able to respond to those threats very rapidly. And plenty of the times, if you want to really do it fast, you need to automate. Make the systems speak with one another. For instance, the SIEM solution should be able to speak with the next generation firewall solution, because next generation firewall is the system that is able to take action. Yet the SIEM is just there to alert, but the SIEM can instruct the next generation firewall to take action, to deny and this and that, to start defending, right? This is a self-aware, self-defending, self-healing network that we're talking about here. And if ever the unthinkable occurs, that means you get hacked. It is now time for you to trigger a policy. That means you need to have policies in place, not just the technology. You shouldn't just focus on the technology. You should also focus on having policies that says to your institution what you will do if you get hacked. And behind these policies, you need to have capabilities to respond. You don't want to get caught without any strong relationship to defend you when you're hacked. It is not the time for you to start calling people that you have never spoken to before. It's going to be hard because the incident response companies, they're very busy. They don't have time. That's why people pay them in advance before they get hacked. If you get hacked now and you start calling incident response companies, you will likely not find one that can respond to you right now, because they're responding to the people that paid them a year before they got hacked. And that's why I put Unit 42 encryption. And I'm saying this to you here, not because they have told me or that I have any interest in that. I'm just giving you information that I have used myself to defend myself in the past, and I believe that you can use as well. Unit 42 encryption is not the only group. Nova Coast has cyber incident response teams as well, and there are plenty of other companies that are super reputable, all of which I have zero relationship with, right? So there's nothing that I benefit from telling you who you should build these relationships with. I have vetted these people, I've used them in the past, and I trust that they can respond in a way that nobody else can. Cisco has a cyber defense team as well. You can put them on retainer, just like Palo Alto has a cyber defense team. If you're a Cisco client, I think it is in your interest to put Cisco on a retainer, right? Their incident response team on a retainer, way ahead of the time that you're going to be hacked, right? And you create a policy now that tells your team to respond appropriately. If you're hacked in the most valuable things and your institution is compromised to the highest degree, you trigger the most severe policy that you have. That says unleash all of the dragons, unleash all of the forces that we have to contain this and to respond and to get back to business as quickly as possible. Don't ever think about paying the hackers. Don't ever think about paying the hackers, because by paying the hackers, you're opening the door for more hackers to come in and compromise you and ask you to pay. That is why you should have a backup of your data. You should back up your data so that if ever you get hit by a ransomware, you have the data stored somewhere. You can restore that data. It is not the time now for you to be thinking about, where's my data? Did I have a copy of that data? How many copies do I have? No, you should have a backup of your data, and you should start doing that today. If you need help with that, you can hit me up and I'll put you in the right path. Now, let's summarize what we need to do. You will be hacked, because we all know that there are two types of institutions: those that have been hacked and those that don't know that they have been hacked, or those that will be hacked. But when you get hacked, number one thing that you need is to not panic. A lot of people, leaders, panic because they believe that they're going to lose their job. You'll find another job. But you need to make sure that while this is happening under your watch, you respond as quickly, as swiftly, as with as much capability as you can. And it's going to speak volume on your behalf so that as you attract the next job, you can use this experience. If you lose the job, there's no guarantee. There's nothing that says you should lose your job. I was hacked. I was 6 months in as the leader of the team. I didn't lose my job, right? And in fact, I was given more money to be able to defend even more strongly because the response that we gave was so swift, so strong that the institution was super proud of that. And they said, holy cow, if we didn't spend this money, we would have been in trouble. Here's more money to spend to prevent more threats and to respond more swiftly next time. So, don't panic. Number one, don't panic. Number two, think about preventing the hack. Now, let's start before you get hacked. Before you get hacked, what you do is you focus on your architecture. You get an assessment done on your architecture to find out where you're vulnerable, and you plug those vulnerabilities. Prevent the hack is your number one objective. When you can't prevent, you need to detect. Detect with the tools that you have. And when you detect, you need to respond. And if you don't have the capability to do all of these three things, prevention, detection, and response, you augment your capabilities with outside teams. I can help you with that. And now, after you have done all of these things, you need to also have policies in place to inform your team how to behave in the presence of a hack. These policies need to have capabilities behind them. These capabilities can be your internal team because you have enough people with enough skills to be able to defend you. But in my case, I didn't have enough people, so I put a very beefy company on retainer, and that was Palo Alto Crypsys Unit 42. And the policy will say who to call. And you don't want to start calling people that you have never spoken to when you hacked. So when you hacked now, number one, you don't panic. Number two, you trigger a policy to be proportional to the level of the hack. And number three, you reach out to the companies that you had on retainer to start responding to this threat. I think that's all I can give you, folks. If you summarize this, you would hear that you need to know what your capabilities are. You need to know who you're going to call if you get hacked. And if you have the capability internally, you need to identify this properly. You should never panic. And you should always try to prevent getting hacked. That's it. If there are questions, I'll take them. I'm not too sure. I should be seeing the questions here, but I'm not too sure if I'm seeing them. But I think that was a great session, folks. How do you prevent a ransomware attack? And if you're hacked, how do you respond to that? We're going to do more of these based on how you, the executives, tell me to move. So I'm happy that I'm connecting with you all every Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern. Having these conversations is great for me. It helps me improve my performance in speaking like that live on the internet and disseminate information that I have that I believe can be massively useful to the general population and to all of the leaders of IT and cybersecurity. For those of you who are engineers, architects, administrators, I speak to you throughout the week. On Saturday, I speak to the executives. That's it for me. I'll see you all again next Saturday at 11 a.m. I'm Jared Derival. Peace.